Hello everybody, my name is JoyofCrimeArt, and man, I sure do love anime.
I love anime!
Yeah. And manga!
Garugamesh!
Oh yeah!
However, one problem I have with anime is just how long so many anime are. Like, have you seen how many episodes One Piece has? It's like at least 50, maybe more, I don't know. I don't have time to watch all that, man. That's just time wasted I could be spending watching more anime. Man, if only there was some way to experience these iconic anime series in a shorter, more condensed fashion. While also including some outdated internet memes. The Abridged series was a popular form of video content back in the early days of YouTube. Followed a pretty basic concept. Take a popular series, usually an anime, and parody said series in an over-the-top comedic way while also shortening it into smaller, more digestible pieces. And at the time, it was a pretty ingenious idea. Not only was it relatively easy to do, all you needed was a mic and some basic editing knowledge to pull it off, but also came with the built-in audience of whatever series was being parodied. The concept was pioneered by online content creator Lil Karibo in his series Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, which premiered on July 17, 2006, and quickly became a viral hit.
Wait a minute, did you just summon a bunch of monsters in one turn?
Yeah, so?
That's against the rules, isn't it?
Screw the rules, I have money.
Though I would argue that the format actually predates Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged by several years, and the format truly originated with the often overlooked Abridged series, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Then let the record so reflect, 'twas I that got there first.
All right, then let the record so reflect.
With Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged being such a hit, of course there would be plenty of imitators, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was the birth of a brand new genre, and soon every anime that was even remotely popular had at least one, if not several, Abridged series to its name. However, there was one Abridged series that rose above the rest, even surpassing Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged in terms of popularity, and that series was none other than Team 4star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Dragon Ball Z Abridged was a collaboration project between several popular Abridged series creators at the time, featuring the likes of Lainey Bator of Yu Yu Hakusho Abridged, Kazuneko of Lupin the Third Abridged, Takahata 101 of G Gundam Abridged, and many other popular names in the Abridged series community that would take way too long to list here. Seriously, this was like the Avengers of the Abridged series community at the time. So not only did you have the combined talents of multiple popular creators, all of whom had cut their teeth working on their own series prior, but you had them abridging Dragon Ball Z, arguably one of the most popular anime series of all time. So it was no wonder the series became a massive hit, but beyond that, while early episode DBZA were fairly run-of-the-mill as far as Abridged series went, the series evolved a lot over time, relying less on pop culture and fourth wall-based humor, which was a staple of the genre at the time, instead focusing more on character-based comedy, which helped the series stand out from its contemporaries. As the series went on, they even played around a bit with having more serious moments, and expanding on aspects of the Dragon Ball lore that were only briefly touched upon in the series proper, with some arguing that DBZA even improved on the original work in some areas. Regardless of what you think of the series though, it's hard to argue its impact. It was a pretty big Dragon Ball drought here in the West in the late 2000s and early 2010s. The series had ended, the live action film was a flop, and Dragon Ball Z Abridged, alongside Dragon Ball Z Kai, did a good job of keeping the series in the public consciousness, while also introducing DBZ to a whole new generation of people. Like, I bet there's a fair number of people whose first exposure to Dragon Ball was through Abridged. And with Dragon Ball Z Abridged being such a hit, it allowed Team 4star to dip their toes into other forms of Abridged content, most of which, while not reaching the same level of popularity as their Dragon Ball content, still did fairly well in its own right. You had their yearly Halloween special Hellsing Ultimate Abridged, Final Fantasy VII Machine Abridged, Attack on Titan Abridged. Yeah, despite the initial success, things weren't all smooth sailing for the Team 4star boys. Since all their Abridged-related content relied on copyrighted footage, they were not able to monetize any of it, with Toei, the company that owned Dragon Ball, going after them particularly hard. Though of course, they still obviously made money off the series in other ways, either through merch sales or through other content on their channel that they're able to attract an audience to through their Abridged work. But still, copyright was a consistent problem, with the channel even being briefly taken down completely in 2016 due to it. This, combined with an increased sense of burnout after working on the series for over a decade, led to the crew deciding to end Dragon Ball Z Abridged in 2018, despite the series' popularity and the fact that there was still a whole nother arc left undubbed, with many of their other Abridged series wrapping up around the same time. Reactions were definitely mixed at the time, but hey, it's not like Abridged series were the only form of content on the channel, because Team 4star had original works as well. You could tell that Team 4star had some ambition beyond just being known as the Dragon Ball parody guys. There was always a sense they wanted to do something more than that, and work on bigger projects, sort of in the vein of a company like Rooster Teeth. Ahem. Why would you want to be like Rooster Teeth? I mean, before Team 4star existed, several people behind what would later become Team 4star had their own group called Neighborhood Cluck, which Yeah, the logo isn't even trying to be subtle about it. But to be fair, the idea makes sense. They couldn't monetize DBZA due to copyright, why not focus on more original work? I mean, they had shown with some of DBZA's more serious moments that they could be pretty good writers after all. So Team 4-Star got to work making several different creative endeavors, most of which kind of went under the radar to most people outside of the most die-hard of fans. But why was that? Well, that's why I'm here to find out today. Before we begin, I just want to make one thing clear that I'm only focusing on Team 4-Star's original productions. They made other series like Home for Infinite Losers and So Versus, which are considered spin-offs or companion pieces to DBZ Abridged, but while those have original stories, they still focus on pre-existing characters, so they don't count in my eyes. I want to see what Team 4-Star can do when they have complete creative control. So with all that said, let's dive in and talk about Team 4-Star's original works. To start things off, we have Diesel Dust. Diesel Dust is a 13-minute pilot created by Mark Swint and follows a group of 3 outlaws, Cadence, Riley, and Huxley, trying to survive on the desert planet of Zurasan, while avoiding all manners of bounty hunters who are out for blood. So the first thing that immediately stands out about the series is the animation. From the art style and character designs to the tone and general feel of the action and fight scenes, Diesel Dust feels very reminiscent of Rooster Teeth's Ruby. Like, I don't have proof this was ever said, but I refuse to believe the series wasn't at the very least Ruby inspired. So that's not automatically a bad thing, but watching it is hard not to make comparisons between the two, which isn't really doing Diesel Dust any favors because even when compared to the earliest seasons of Ruby, the show looks pretty rough. I don't want to be too hard on it since it's just a pilot and an indie pilot at that. I know Team 4-Star probably didn't have as much of a budget to make this, even compared to similar companies like Rooster Teeth, but still, I have to judge a product for what it is. Still though, there's something kind of charming about seeing a series go all out even without having the proper resources to match that ambition. It's what gave early Ruby its charm, and the same principle applies here. Plus the series does have some generally nice lighting and coloring, as well as some fight scenes that, while nothing that great, are still pretty well done. Should this be picked up for a series and given a higher budget, I could see it turning out really nice looking. Obviously 13 minutes isn't much time to set up much in regards to the characters or the setting, but they do a good job planting the seeds for things that can be explored more in depth later. There seems to be a lot of thought in how the machinery of this world works, and allusions of plotlines that can be delved into more at a later point. You can definitely feel the passion the people behind this project must have had for it. But how are the characters? Our main lead is Cadence, a bubbly robot girl with no memory of who she is or where she came from. She is shown to be an optimist, always trying to find a non-violent answer to a situation despite living in what is very much a dog-eat-dog world. This optimism is contrasted with Riley, the cynic/straight man of the team, who seems a lot more jaded to the world around him. There's also Huxley, a young teen who seems to be the comic relief of the group. I admit I found him to be a bit annoying at a few points, but I could easily see this being fixed if the series got more episodes to flesh him out a bit more. The series manages to have a somewhat surprising voice cast, featuring Kyle Herbert, known for his work on the actual Dragon Ball Z anime, alongside other roles. But who cares about that? They got Linkara in this?!
It's me, the Lightbringer.
Judging the pilot for what it is honestly kind of middle of the road, but I think the concept, settings, and characters could have potential should it get picked up for a full series, and hopefully if that ends up happening, the series will be able to grow into its own and gain more of an identity beyond just feeling like Team 4-Star's answer to Ruby, which I feel like it really could.
History and science, magical collide. It's time for Wizards in Time because we're the Wizards in Time.
Next we have Magic Time Wizards, which actually has 2 episodes as opposed to 1. Oh, Team 4-Star's moving up in the world! So this is an interesting one. Magical Time Wizard follows the exploits of Quantum Felnar and Gus Epoch, 2 time wizards whose job is to travel through history in order to keep the timeline in check, with the gimmick of the series being that the whole thing is entirely improvised on the spot with just 3 actors, which is at least a unique idea for a series, though in execution the results can feel a bit mixed. I feel like the series falls into an awkward middle ground, where it feels a little too professional to just be a silly farce, but not professional enough to really feel like a fully realized concept. The 2 actors stay pretty much in character the entire time and try their best to keep continuity straight like they're doing a real roleplay, which is fine, but I feel like if you're making a series entirely improv, you kind of want them to break character and derail the plot in exciting and chaotic ways. But since they're still making everything up as they go along, the stories don't feel as fleshed out as they would be if they actually had been written and proofread. I feel like the series should have picked one style or the other. The humor isn't awful, but sometimes it can just feel like a stretched out version of one of those improvised Rick and Morty sketches. I feel like the show could have definitely benefited from a shorter runtime. Neither characters feel that memorable either, with Quanta being the goofy one while Gus is the straight man. They don't really do much beyond their basic roles. The animation, while limited, looks pretty okay considering how low the budget probably was. The series has a really interesting premise, but I feel like it was a bit squandered in the execution, unfortunately.
The Fistmasters of legend were said to have power beyond even the greatest of warriors, without limits, and surrounded by blinding aura.
Next we have Fistmasters, created by Steven Krovex, a frequent TFS collaborator. The series actually started out on his channel, running for 2 episodes, before being, I guess you would say, rebooted on Team 4star's channel for another 2 episodes. I tried to look up the original series in order to compare the two, but only episode 2 of the series' original run can be found on his channel, and even there it's unlisted, with episode 1 seeming to be privated, so I'll be judging the rebooted series as its own thing. Man, you know, when I initially came up with the idea for this video, I never saw myself going down the Fistmasters rabbit hole. Fistmasters follows Akio and Red, 2 adopted siblings who live on a small desert island with their blind assassin mentor Panchi, who tries to teach the 2 how to master their ki. The series feels like a bit of a homage-esque love letter to shonen anime in general, specifically Dragon Ball, so it feels on brand for Team 4star. Let's start with the characters. You have Akio, your typical wide-eyed and overly enthusiastic kid hero who dreams of becoming a warrior, who has to learn how to control his unusually high levels of ki. There's Red, the more level-headed, cool older sister type, and there's Panchi, the bitter mentor slash parent figure who is fairly morally dubious but still clearly cares about her students. Unfortunately, none of these characters do much to really stand out much beyond their basic tropes. Not only that, but I'd say the characters feel a bit annoying and unlikable at times. Like, I mean no ill will towards the actor, but I do not gel with the voice they use for Akio. It comes off as whiny and annoying, which I know is intentional, but still.
Red! That wasn't nice.
She was trying to hit you!
Oh, yeah. I guess it's okay then.
And Panchi comes off pretty unlikable. Sure, we get some nice moments of her mentoring her students, but like, she's still a cold-blooded assassin, right? I guess we're just supposed to assume that all people she kills just deserve it, I guess. But like, episode 2 features these other assassin characters acting as the episode's villains, so like, why are these guys murdering people seen as bad, but it's okay when one of our leads does it? Without anything obviously distinguishing them, it kind of comes off as hypocritical.
But please don't kill me, I have a daughter, her name is Raina, Like I haven't killed people with daughters before. What an idiot.
Red is probably the character I like the most, though really that mostly just comes from the fact that she doesn't do anything to actively make me dislike her. They're still fairly standard. Give her this love interest named Kari in episode 2, and they have some pretty nice chemistry with each other. They do that thing a lot of modern cartoons do when they have a sapphic female love interest where they try so hard to make it a positive portrayal of gay rep, they kinda end up overcompensating. Like you 2 met an hour ago, have been tied up by a group of assassins, and one of your parents is about to be murdered. Why are you flirting right now? The animation, while not spectacular or anything, is pretty good, especially given how many different locations and angles we see, and the fight scenes are pretty nice, given the obvious budget limitations. If I had to compare the series to anything, it would probably be an R-rated OKKO. The series is a bit of a mixed bag. I wouldn't really call it all that good. Like I said, the characters aren't the greatest, but it's not the worst thing ever. Team 4star's only live-action production, we have Unabridged, a mockumentary series following the wacky adventures of the Team 4star crew in the vein of something like The Office. But the crew behind Team 4star are all playing exaggerated versions of themselves. Oh boy, I can't wait to watch people sit in front of a computer and edit for 14 hours straight! Actually, due to the copyright, they can't even show them working on Dragon Ball Z Abridged, or any other Abridged series work for that matter. So we don't even see them really working on anything, they just kinda hang around the office waiting for wacky adventures to happen. Like, I'm not convinced that Team 4star, within the context of this series, is anything more than a money laundering ring. I think a lot of how much you're going to get out of this series depends on how invested you are to the Team 4star crew as creators. Like, I know the show is clearly made for the diehard, but unlike the other series I've talked about so far, I can't imagine anyone getting into the series if you have no idea who Team 4star are or what they do. First, I found the episodes to be kind of boring, often being overly long, relying on the same 1 or 2 running jokes, though some got a laugh out of me, mostly through the actors having some pretty good deliveries.
You kidnapped a child?
Okay, anything can sound bad if you use words.
Oh my god, why didn't you take him to the police?
So I'm afraid of cops.
I also noticed the cinematography improving a bit as the series went on, which is a plus, but overall, the series was kind of a drag to get through. But I could see someone really liking it if they're a big fan of the individual Team 4star members. 4 episodes are out, which is a personal record for the company so far. The production was forced to be put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic making it impossible to shoot, but as of last year, they were still filming for it, so maybe there'll be more in the future.
If we all work together and win the volleyball tournament, each of us gets a single wish granted. A pair of girls' panties.
Share your energy with me.
Volleyballs don't summon dragons!
He said it! He said it!
Okay, so before we begin, I want to be upfront and say that this one doesn't really count. So consider this one to be an extra. Hells is an anime film that was released in 2008 based on the Hell's Angel manga series. 10 years later, in 2018, the series would be licensed by the company Discotech and given an English dub produced by none other than, you guessed it, Team 4-Star. You might expect this to be a gag dub, something along the lines of Ghost Stories or something, but they play it straight. It's kind of surreal looking at the voice cast as a mix of professional voice actors and talent from Team 4-Star's other work. However, watching the film, everyone involved does a good enough job that you can't immediately tell the difference. The dub does feature a lot of characters screaming their lines, which some might find annoying, but I feel like that has more to do with the tone of the movie itself rather than Team 4-Star specifically. The dub is fine. Honestly, if I didn't know going in that Team 4-Star was involved, I doubt I would have even noticed. However, I just want to talk about this movie, because it's interesting, and when else am I going to have a chance to talk about it? So just know going in that from this point on, nothing I say about this movie, positive or negative, is a reflection of Team 4-Star, okay? So Hells follows Rene, an optimistic high school girl who mysteriously ends up transported to the land of Hell. Her only hope of getting home is to graduate from Destinyland Academy, a high school designed for monsters run by the ruler of Hell, the brutal headmaster Helvis. Yeah, it's that kind of anime. Honestly, I just want to say I love this film's premise. It's so cool and creative, with the setting being an opportunity for so many possibilities. All the students in Destinyland Academy have these really cool designs, each one being inspired by a different classic monster, which gives the films a real spooky Halloween-y vibe to it. Apparently these characters were all based on some kind of obscure Japanese toy line called Resurrection of Monstrous. Wait a minute. This is just Anime Monster High! This is just Monster High, but everyone has bigger tits! Speaking of design, let's talk about the movie's art style for a second, because oh my god! That has to be one of the most gorgeous and stylized pieces of animation I've ever seen, period. It's like a cross between Tim Burton and Studio Trigger, two things that you would never think would mix together but end up looking incredible. So many screenshots from this film look like you just hang them up as a piece of art on your wall. It's incredible. This movie is bad. I know, it pisses me off too. I wanted to love this movie based purely on the visuals alone, but despite its jaw-dropping art direction and fantastic premise, the film doesn't really have much going for it besides that. The biggest issue is the pacing. This has to be one of the worst paced films I've ever seen in my entire life, no exaggeration. The beginning of the film, everything's going way too fast. Reduces so many characters, we don't really get that much time to really know any of them. But the only one I end up really feeling any connection to being Rene herself. We have Stella, this quiet Frankenstein monster girl who befriends Rene. There's Ryu and Mario, these two human guys from the student council who are also humans sent to hell under mysterious circumstances, who are trying to figure out what's going on. There's Kiki and Phantoma, two bully characters who are supposed to grow and become allies to our heroes as the film progresses, but due to the pacing it feels like we barely get any time to know these characters. Resulting in scenes later on in the film that want us to feel like these characters have formed a genuine bond with each other to end up falling flat. For the first third of the film, it feels like we keep bouncing between various vignettes that don't really connect to each other all that well, causing the plot to feel kind of rambling. But then, 45 minutes into this 2-hour movie, the climax starts. Yeah, I'm not kidding, 2/3 of this film's runtime is the final act. It turns out that Ryu isn't actually a normal human trapped in hell after all, but is actually Abel. Like, from the Bible. And Helvis is actually Cain. Ryu, or Abel rather, brought Rene to hell as part of a ploy to destroy hell and get revenge on all mankind, because it was murdered thousands of years ago and just decided to make that his entire personality, I guess. He needs Rene in order to destroy hell, because she is actually the reincarnation of Eve. So she's the only one who's able to release his madness, and yeah, it's that kind of anime. Now listen, anime trying and failing to understand the most basic fundamental concepts of Christianity is like one of my favorite tropes. It's hilarious to me. But I don't know, man, it just kind of feels like victim blaming. This is the point where the movie's pacing goes from being way too fast to way too slow. Around the 77-minute mark, it feels like things should be wrapping up. But every time it seems like our heroes are about to defeat Abel, suddenly there's a new twist where Abel now has the upper hand. Then it looks like they're about to beat Abel again, but then there's another twist that gives Abel the upper hand. It just keeps going and going, and characters keep going on about the importance of determination, never giving up, and blah 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 blah. This movie isn't paced like a 2-hour movie. It's paced like a 13-episode anime that was condensed into a 2-hour movie. Hard to say if I recommend this film or not, because on one hand, this film is gorgeous. Like, a big part of me wants to recommend this film based on that alone. But that's really the only thing the film has going for it outside the novelty of it being dubbed by Team 4-Star. The characters aren't all that memorable, the premise is underutilized, and the pacing absolutely destroys this film. I think whether or not this film is for you will depend on how forgiving you are. But the film is available fully dubbed on several free streaming services like Tubi and Retro Crush if you're interested in watching it yourself. Team 4-Star has certainly made an effort to try to branch out beyond just abridging. However, it doesn't feel like many of these productions have had much success. If you look at the views on most of these series, they're not really anything to write home about. Most of these series only have a couple episodes each, with most not updating in years. Like, none of them have been officially cancelled, but Unabridged seems the only one that's in active development. And even then, filming apparently started over a year ago with no word on when the new episodes are coming out. And after Hell's, Team 4-Star never took another jab at dubbing another anime movie or series either. Honestly, I feel kinda bad for Team 4-Star. You can tell they want to try more experimental things. Whenever they do, it only gets a fraction of the views their Dragon Ball related content gets. Can't blame the audience either, they subscribed for the Abridged series. So when Team 4-Star tried to move away from that style of content, it's only natural that some parts of their audience would lose interest. It'd be like if you went to Subway, but then one day Subway was like, oh sorry, we don't sell subs anymore, we sell lawn furniture now. It could be the greatest lawn furniture of all time, and some people might like it, but that's not what they came in for. But still, Team 4-Star still seems to be doing fine enough. It's not like Dragon Ball Z Abridged ending caused them to go bankrupt or anything. They're still doing okay. I know I haven't said the kindest words about most of Team 4-Star's original productions, but I do think them trying to branch out is admirable. They could have so easily just kept DBZA going because that's what people wanted, doing the Boo Saga and then moving on to either GT or Super, and it probably would have been pretty successful, but they didn't do that. They ended the series on their own terms because they wanted to end it while it was still good, and I think that's pretty cool. These people are obviously talented, and I feel like with the proper time, patience, and budget, they could make something really great. So whatever the future holds for this company, I wish them the best. Have you seen any of Team 4-Star's original works? And if you have, what do you think of them? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, I genuinely want to hear what you all think. If you like this video, feel free to like it, subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon if you want to see more videos like it. And as always, have a great day.